Well, willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to the last of our weekly publications with regards our weekly podcast with regards building. And this one's, of course, Cladding Matters. It's to my left, but Hamish McClay is to convey the person who helped set this up in the first place. And of course, Steve Day, our buildingsafetyscheme.org, gentleman who is currently residing in Royal Artillery Keys, a person who is right at the forefront of trying to get legislation through to help with future safety issues, particularly fire safety, who has recently been involved in taking the reins, one might say. But more about that in a minute. Hamish, would you like to care to start us off?
Right, so good afternoon to you all. Great afternoon, and hopefully you're on your way to the weekend. But whilst you're there, there's certain matters to sort of think about, and it's one of those aspects of society that we live in now. I always remember a cartoon that I saw when I worked in the industry, and this great cartoon, because I used to sort of buy all the stuff in that went into the stores, but there was this wonderful cartoon of a guy stood there in the stores, and there's a guy pointing at, he's actually seen what he wants. And there's a man stood there on his computer saying, and there's a big, the big balloon that comes out. Yeah, but we haven't got any stock. You can't have it because we haven't got any stock. And he's going, it's there. It's there. And we've always got a situation like that at the moment. It is a known fact. And goodness knows how many people, I don't know, Steve will be able to tell us how many different reports there have been on the status of Royal Artillery Keys. Now, bear in mind, we're speaking about Royal Artillery Keys, but it is not the only series of buildings. There are thousands of buildings all over this country in exactly the same position that are being remediated to the same standard. And the big argument has been right from the start, the builders and the developers, and this one in particular, Barrett's, they have refused to do any remediation unless it's signed off by the council. And the council have turned around and saying, well, apart from the obvious, which is that everybody's got that same kind of challenge, but it wasn't that they're trying to maintain that the cladding that was put on at the start and various other aspects of what was done at the start, they did not breach any building regulations. And they've come out with a statement to say there is nothing about this building that actually sort of failed building regulations at the time of build. Now, because it's changed now, they can't do certain things on you. But the biggest challenge here, because the council have made this particular statement, it's like the man pointing, saying, hey, look, it's there. It's like glass you've got. The only escape route for all of these residents, 1,000 or so residents who live in Royal Artillery Keys, is through, if you like, it's almost like a tube which is designed. It's this one single stairwell because you can't use the lift during the course of a fire. So if you've got glass in there, which has been found in the most recent investigation, this is about paying to prove the risk. It's obvious it can be seen. It's not fire. It's not fire retardant glass or whatever you call the stuff that. So basically that will start shattering and all the rest of it on two aspects. There's inmates. The people, residents are trying to escape at the same time as the firemen are trying to get up the stairwell and there's no fire doors. And it's fairly obvious the council are being shown, here's a plan of where the fire doors should be, no fire doors. And it was part of the building regime at the time. They should have had fire doors. Again, point the finger. They're not there. That's where they should be. Now, none of the council members, to my knowledge, have actually come around to check this. But because of what they've said, the remediation, and it's sort of remediation, it's not proper remediation because it's still leaving all of these aspects that are going to be mentioned in the fire. We're looking forward to this fire report coming through because the residents have had to raise their own money to get this inspected and to actually demonstrate it to the council. Although they've got all these other things, they know about it, but their statement's still high. So we better let Steve get on. I've been rabbiting on for long enough now. Now, Steve's actually living in this situation. Bearing in mind, we're trying to get the whole of the industry to start looking at this much more seriously. But Steve's actually living in this particular type of environment. So he is living at risk. He is having to pay more money. So best we let him say something about it.
Steve, welcome to the show. This is your daily reality, and I believe that from the council, Greenwich have stated on more than one occasion, there's nothing to see here. And not only that, there never was. Now, we've been able to show on a number of occasions that's patently untrue, that they've perhaps misguided at best. But recently, you've gone ahead and done something which I consider to be monumental. First of all, I'm going to let you talk about it. Please explain what is it you've done, how you paid for it, how quick that was covered, and what the results have been, please.
Yeah, well, thank you, Hamish and Gareth. So Royal Artillery Keys, we've obviously been a victim of the watered down remediation PAS 99 standard, devised from our friend Colin Todd, MBE, which we'll cover later on in our podcast again. But we've basically been told that if a fire engineer says, "Oh, leave the flammable stuff that's banned on new buildings on the building," then that's enough under this standard to basically let the builder off, and you can enjoy all the risk and the permanently high insurance to come. So that's where we found ourselves. But as residents, we've done a campaign for about 2 years where we said these XPS panels, and XPS is the second most highly combustible Euro Class E material in Europe. You know, these are dangerous panels, and they want to leave them apart from taking off two. They're taking off two of the panels, but no more. And why take them off at all if they're not that
it's going to be either take them all off or take none of them off.
That's right. So we said, right, we got a dodgy situation with a dodgy fire report and a dodgy standard. And anyone that's seen Colin Todd's poem to me over Christmas will know the kind of caliber of fire engineer that we have leading the country's standards. Now, where we are is we've managed to raise £4,360 in less than 24 hours from the residents of Royal Artillery Keys for a fire engineer to come, an independent one that we are going to choose instead of Barrett / building owners. And he came yesterday. I was horrified that these highly combustible panels are going to be left on our fire shafts, and all being well, we'll have quite a damning report to put to the building owners, where we're gonna make the case that if you've got a report saying, "Oh, leave the panels on, there's no risk here," and a report that says these are dangerous, they're banned on new buildings, the fire brigade says they must come off, we say as a fire engineering experts they must come off, which report should they follow? The one that says, "Oh, take the risk," or the one that says, "No, these are dangerous, and if you're disputing it, they're banned on new buildings, they must come off"? They should take the latter, and that is going to be a very interesting situation. So we'll cover this all on Cladding Matters. What will the two freeholders do when they're faced with a report that says their other report is frankly a danger and a menace to the 1,000 residents there?
But I believe but he's not just been looking at the combustibility of XPS panels, he also looks at the glass.
We've raised that. So we've noted that the glass in the top right corners have got a watermark called a BS standard, and basically the glass is just toughened. It's not actually fire rated at all. So we're asking him to investigate whether that isn't a breach of building regulations at the time of construction for a single escape stair, because as you graphically said, you know, the fire brigade are going to be coming up the staircase with a massive hose, multiple fire professionals, and you're going to have a load of residents coming down the 16-story escape stair at the same time, with potentially jagged glass coming from the windows because it's not fire rated, and a whole load of highly combustible XPS panels burning.
It
And,
doesn't really
it's not
bear
exactly
thinking
great,
about,
is
does
it?
it? It's just a disaster in the making, really.
Yes, and then another part of it at the bottom of the fire shaft, Greenwich Council, weirdly, they condemned in 2019 the fact that the plan said there should be fire doors separating the escape stair from the fire lift.
Right.
And they don't exist, even though they're on the plan. So they never actually installed them. But the fire brigade will only issue one enforcement notice for one of the 8 buildings. And I've been fighting for that one, and I managed to get it, which is, and an enforcement notice is basically, it's a legally binding notice to make the building owners who are legally responsible for fire safety do a remediation. But the fire brigade won't issue it for the other 7 buildings, despite the fact that those 7 other buildings are all missing the same fire doors at the base of each stairwell. And so in the last few days, actually, for I think the 6th time, I've chased them for, why do you feel that the other 7 buildings that have got exactly the same issue aren't worthy of an enforcement notice? And these are lives at stake. We've actually got remediation going on at the moment. And, what if someone lights a fag out there, or, does something untoward or a mistake? It's not no one's fault, but it causes a fire. We need these fire doors on almost as an emergency at the moment, because there's increased risk. And the council is saying the evidence that they condemn the building doesn't exist, even though we've got the evidence. So, the council, the fire brigade, Barratt, the building owners, it all, and the national response to fire safety as well, with the dodgy watered down PAS standard, it's all doing exactly the same thing. It's controlling the liability for dangerous, unlawful construction to the construction industry, and pushing the risk onto the poor souls that have bought the properties. And that is the design. This isn't by accident. And the question is, we should all ask ourselves, why would a council, on the 9th anniversary of Grenfell, which is a week away, right, why would a council maintain a false council position they know to be false for over a year that could put 1,000 people's lives at risk because they're denying the existence of dangerous and unlawful construction? Why would they do it? Why? And that's a question I'd leave open to our viewers. Why do you think that the council would take such a high reputational risk, with the horrors of Grenfell and the well-known dismissing of residents' concerns by that council in West London? Why are they repeating it?
It does seem like they are repeating the mistakes of the past, does it not, Steve?
The question is why, and they're paying a high price, because I'm not the kind of guy that is allowing them to get away with it, as you probably can tell. But why would they continually be silent and look really stupid for a whole year? That's a question. And we've got potentially a journalist going to do a story exposing this story shortly. I won't mention yet because I don't want to jinx the story, but all being well, that story will come out, and then you'll see some quite shocking revelations, especially their latest response to all of this. But we'll wait for the story, and then as soon as that's secured, I'll talk you through it. But it's going to be quite a shocker. Well, frankly, it's a disgrace in our country where local authorities, even outside building safety, can maintain a false full council position, be challenged. We went to the ombudsman, we went through the full council procedures of complaining, we tabled motions to correct it, we got backing from a Grenfell inquiry casey, Stephanie Barwise, the Earl of Lytton, former State Premier Ted Barlow of Australia, Victoria, Australia. We've had condemnation from Lord Greenhouse, a Tory peer. We've had condemnation from the Grenfell Tower Trust. And all of that, and a year of campaigning, and 3 excellent songs, may I say, Gareth. Thank you to you and your skills. But all of that pressure and 2 elections where we really bashed them, no retraction, even though it's patently false, even though the Grenfell KC is saying it's totally wrong what's happening. They will not withdraw this statement. And the question is, and it should be a question for all of us, why is this allowed in society? Why can a local authority openly maintain a dishonest position without repercussion? And that should chill everyone, because it basically means there's no reason for any elected official to basically tell the truth, because they get away with it. And this is a terrible precedent if we're not successful here. So we must be.
It's a precedent that cannot be set, Hamish. It seems that allowing people just to get away with blatant lying, and yes, I said it, lying.
It is lying. I'll say it too. It is lying to say there's no evidence and maintain that when we sent them all the evidence. It is lying.
Well, no, I'm going to be explicit. There is evidence in black and white, in some cases blue and white, that at the time of construction, this did not adhere to the safety standards as laid down in precepts at that time. Not later, because the whole position has been, oh, well, the standards have got better, so of course things have changed. But that's a load of bull dust, if one can say so. Hamish,
let's barra off. The council position lets barra off. Basically, it's saying that, yes, there's defects, but they did everything right at the time. It's just after Grenfell, the standards have got stricter. So you can't hold Barrett to account. And that weakens us in court.
And ladies and gentlemen, it should come to your attention that Barrett is by no means the worst offender in this. I mean, and I use the word only in its most amusing variation. They only have 35% of properties not fit to be lived in from the fire safety standards perspective. There are others that are up to 75%. There would be only 1/4 of their properties you could probably live in. The rest of them are on fire waiting to happen. I need to tie this up because we're running a bit long today. But look, Steve, before I pass back to Hamish, have you got? I mean, we're prepping everybody for the revelations when they come. Can we put a time on that? Do we know when that's going to be?
I think we should get an article in the next 2 weeks, and also we should also have the fire report in the next 2 weeks. So hopefully, 2 weeks time, we'll have some good, very interesting revelations, both on the article and on the fire report.
I suggest that people prime themselves to get their socks blown off, perhaps they're wearing suspenders or whatever it is to keep their socks on, because these are going to be very strong, powerful revelations. Hamish, on a day like this, can you please take us home?
Well, I think it's probably one of those aspects that could make for a very interesting article on some of these the news channels which they actually sort of now have. And I think with the information and all the rest of it, it is of interest, because there are millions of people in this country living in properties requiring remediation. Now, what makes it worse, there are a large number which have been allegedly remediated, but they are remediated to this past standard of 9980, which
soft soaping at best, yes.
So the thing is, that hasn't really been fully remediated. What is going to happen with those? Now, this is the worrying thing, because a lot of people don't want this information to come out and be made fully public and people fully aware of it, because it's going to impact throughout the whole of the industry when the results of this actually come through. And it's going to reinforce the need. And one of the saddest things is we have not seen anybody being held responsible for what went on at Grenfell. But the council were actually seriously responsible because they ignored what the residents were saying. Now, the residents have put the information before them. They've crowdfunded the ability to be able to get this particular fire report. They've had to do all of that to demonstrate to the council that their building control was got it right at the time when they said in 2019, hey, there ain't no fire doors. They should have been put in. So why haven't fire doors been put in there? Why aren't they part of the remediation? Never mind all the rest of the bits and pieces, but there's nothing wrong with it. Now, what has also been stated, and quite clearly, should anything, and heaven forbid, should anything happen, the council members who've accepted this, there are some council members who reject what is being said by the lead councillor and various other spokespeople for that council. They've been set up. So the whole council, those, I don't know how many there are, there's 20 odd, because it's a new council, same head, same spokespeople, no change. And nothing has actually sort of happened with this. So basically, we're actually a call out, if anybody anywhere else in the country feels that they're not being looked after by their local council, the builders, the developers, the owners of for heaven's sake, get in touch with any one of the three of us so we can get on board just to make it. It's a shame that we're just doing it about Royal Artillery Keys. It would be very, very useful. We know it's happening all over the place, but we don't yet have people coming out to say, hey, look, you can understand why, because they don't want to demonstrate to people, because serious situation, we haven't spoken about all the serious consequences of what's going on, but people are at risk. Their lives are at risk with this present standard. So please, please, please get in touch. If you're one of those people in a property somewhere in England and Wales, in fact, it could be Scotland, if you're in Scotland too, because they do have issues up in Scotland and in Ireland. But they work things on a slightly different basis. They have their own governments, as do Wales. But the Welsh gladiators, they call themselves, they have done some work. They have worked directly with their own government. I can't remember what they call it now, but they have worked things out with them. There has been an agreement reached there. Nothing like that with Royal Artillery Keys.
No.
All the MPs and everything are absolutely against. We cannot get the support outside of the one that Steve is working with directly. So we do need people to make everybody aware of this situation and support the demand to let people have a safe place to live. That's all it's about. Give people a safe place to live.
You would have thought that'd be one of the standard human rights one might expect, that where you live, is not likely to spontaneously combust or fall apart or constantly need review or support. That it should be something from day to day you assume will be still in one piece. It seems a sad state of affairs that the council, under whose jurisdiction this lies, is so keen to save face and to not look like they've tripped up and fallen face planted straight in the egg, that they would rather tell blatant untruths rather than admit to what is a fundamental breach. And the sooner they come to their senses and realize that if they want that they won't be on the right side of history when this comes up, and it will just look that this will hang over them like a rotting piece of fish. If they don't sort it out, it will be stuck on their careers and their own CVs as the thing that will overshadow anything good they may have achieved. I suggest they make good of this as soon as they can, and I renew with urgency and with vigor that if any of them would like to come on the show and explain their position, we are, if there's a reason why they've taken this approach that we have not comprehended, I would love to hear about it, and you will get a fair hearing and a fair right of reply, and we would absolutely adore that. Also, if there are any barristers out there who are banging their fists into their palms and while we're talking, please come along and please take a look at some of the information we've got to show you. which may well, hopefully, make your toes curl. But until next week, the fight goes on. Steve, congratulations on everything you've achieved. My goodness. And the fact that he got that paid for, that fire engineer got paid for in 24 hours on the GoFundMe. I hear people talking about GoFundMes that are lasting weeks and months and are barely hitting their goals. And he managed to get it done over a 24-hour period. And that's because there's a great feeling behind this with residents, people who actually care about this. But I'm going to wind this up. Please, all of you, in these troubled times, make sure you keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and look after your mental health. And until the same time next week, have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye now.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll polish through the moon, but their word